What's up? And welcome to No Limits, a very special episode of No Limits because you got Project XTalk takeover here because we've played The Last of Us Part 1 remake for the very first time. And we're here to tell you all about it on this very special episode of No Limits, a PlayStation podcast. Hello, everyone.
That was hot.
That was hot. Man, we do not hear that intro music over on Project XTalk. We got our own thing going on. But welcome to No Limits, a PlayStation podcast. My name is Kevin, aka the Muffin Man. I am not your usual host, Taylor, Sam, Brianna. They're not here. We gave them today off. I am joined by my fellow Project XTalk co-host, Ethan. How you doing, buddy?
Doing fantastic. This is the second time I've been on a piece of No Limits content this week. It's really exciting. I'm changing sides, Kevin, it seems.
Oh no, that's unacceptable. But if you're wondering why we're here, that is because, as I said in the intro, we have both played The Last of Us Part 1 remake, and it was our very first time ever playing The Last of Us. So, as we're going to discuss, what were our overall thoughts? Did we like the game? Did it live up to the hype of this game-changing video game, as everyone has called it, really changed the game industry, according to some people? We're going to discuss all of that, whether it's worth $70, how the gameplay holds up, everything you want to know about the remake. But before we get into that, remember, if you like this podcast, we are here every Tuesday. This is a special episode, but normally No Limits is Tuesdays right here on youtube.com. And you can catch us every Tuesday morning over on your favorite podcast service of choice, whether that's Apple, Spotify. If you want to interact with us more, please come join our Discord down below. And if you want to support us and get early access to all of Save the Game Media's content, like Frame by Frame, I Hate My Friends, and our show, Project XTalk, a Xbox podcast, head on over to patreon.com/save the game media. Choose the tier that's right for you, just like our current Patreon supporters: Bucky Blue, Hopple, Alpaca Tom, SAZ, Fabulous Brianna, Brianna's mom, Brianna's brother, and Brianna's wife have all done. Thank you all for your support. Ethan, I don't want to waste any more time. We're not doing news, all right? We're only talking about The Last of Us. What were your overall impressions of The Last of Us Part 1 remake?
Overall, incredible. Absolutely adored it. I thought this game lived up to the hype that I've heard from PlayStation fans for almost the last decade. I think obviously I don't have the luxury of playing this in 2013. I'm playing it in 2022 now. I've been overexposed to so many different video games. So this isn't like game changing for me or anything, but I can understand how this could have been game changing back in the day. I think that it looks absolutely stunning. That's the thing that hit me right off the bat, was the environments were so incredible. This game was a visual feast for me. It was a pleasure to play through it. I took my time. I looked for all the collectibles. I did platinum it. So for anyone out there, I did go through, get all the collectibles. I found everything, explored every little nook and cranny of this game, even though my nerves were shot about 2 hours into this, because I have a huge phobia of zombies. So I was very, very happy to see that there's a lot of accessibility features with this. That helped me out tremendously to be able to actually experience this story. There were still some moments where it was like a little iffy, especially with those damn stalkers. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit. But overall, this is a 5 out of 5 for me. It's an incredible narrative experience. This is what I think of when I think of PlayStation. Before I got PlayStation, I was thinking of these incredible third-person narrative experiences and single-player experiences, and this is what it is. And it was so fun to be able to play, and I really enjoyed it.
That's great to hear. I actually think we probably align more on our overall thoughts than we differ, because I'm familiar with The Last of Us Part 2. I watched my brother play that, but I didn't really have any of the, attachment to these characters. They were just, I'm seeing the screen. I know what happens in that game. So going back and playing this for the first time really was an experience that I personally really enjoyed. I think from a storytelling perspective, you don't really get that much better in games. Was it perfect for me? No, it wasn't. It wasn't the perfect video game. I do think it is a phenomenal game in terms of storytelling. This is, I can understand why people are like, Naughty Dog is the narrative masters, why they craft such intricate stories, their characters, their worlds. I think there's a lot of love put into this remake because I played on performance mode. I don't know what you played on.
Yeah, same performance.
Okay. So I chose that. I could have done the 4K 40 frames per second. My TV does support that,
Mhm.
but I went with the performance because I'm gonna go 60. Even
Yeah.
at 60 and whatever resolution it was, I think it's dynamic. I thought this game was absolutely gorgeous. Especially, I don't think screenshots, I must stress this. I don't think screenshots do
No.
justice
No, they do
to
not.
how good this game actually looks. Like we've seen the comparisons between this is the PS3, PS4, and now the remake version. The screenshots do not convey how beautiful this game is. Specifically, the one part with the giraffes.
Yeah, right near the
Breathtaking.
end. It was
Breathtaking.
ridiculous. There's so many moments like that in this game when you look over across the landscape and it's like, okay, I got to get to this point over here, and you look out across the area and you're like, oh my god, I get to go play in this playground of zombies and
Mhm.
hunters and discover all the different secrets of this little place that I'm in. Like I remember, I think it first clicked with me when you first enter Billstown and you're at that water
Mhm.
treatment area overhead and you're about to walk into Billstown and you're looking at all the buildings and you're like, "Oh my god, there's so much explorable stuff here. There's so many things to discover." Even though this was a short game and I think it took me about 13 and a half hours to platinum this. I'm sure it took you a
Yeah.
little shorter.
I think my playtime came in at about maybe 9 to 10 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, but even though it was one of those shorter experiences, it felt like such a dense game. It felt like there was so much content to be able to consume and explore within this world, and I absolutely adored it. There's so many environments in this that are highlights that are burned into my brain, Kevin. Like I can name off so many different areas of this game right now that were my
Mhm.
favorite. The hotel was absolutely awesome, going through that foyer and doing all the puzzles to open the safe and everything. I loved Billstown, like I just mentioned. Billstown was absolutely incredible. Pittsburgh is absolutely a stunning location for this game. So, and what's the best part about it for me is that the environment itself is almost like another character in the
Mhm.
story in this game. And then as you're going through the environment and it looks lived in, even though it's an apocalypse, it looks lived
Yeah.
in. You can see what was happening in the areas that you're exploring as you explore them. You go into a house, for example, you see suitcases on the bed with clothes tossed around because you can tell people were packing up when the infection hit. You see a child's room with all their toys, and it's not random clutter thrown around. This looks like handcrafted locations. I don't know
Mhm.
if it's the same in the 2013 version or if that's something they did with this remake, or you
So
were about to say.
from my understanding, they did change some of the items displayed,
Mhm.
but there is more density. So one thing I really love, and I'm going to add on to your point,
Yep.
was the amount of exploring I did. Even though the game is very linear and you're
Yep.
following basically there's one path through everything to you solve the puzzle, like those are the only
Mhm.
ways to go. The areas do feel big. You do
Yeah.
have a lot of room to roam around, approach situations in different ways, and even out of combat, you're going through the college dorms for one. I went
Yeah.
through
Oh god.
room by
Woo.
room by
Scary.
room, and
Yep.
I'm like, this is every room is different. They made
Mhm.
every some of the obviously assets were the same because it's college dorm. The beds are obviously gonna look the same, but like
Yeah.
every room kind of felt unique. Like, oh, there was a different person living here. Like this is a girl's
Right.
room. This is a boy's room. I thought they did a fantastic job in fleshing out the world, especially when you get into things like reading the notes that are left around the
Yeah.
environment,
Yeah.
where I took the time to read them. And that's not
Mhm.
something I normally do for basically like they're collectibles. You
I
don't
was gonna
really
say,
need
yeah.
them. You
That's
don't
not
really
something you
need to
do.
read them, but uh, the hearing the stories about like couples trying to get away together and failing, or uh, bro, Billstown is maybe one of my favorite locations in this game.
Billstown's so fun.
The trap set up
Yeah.
everywhere. It was so awesome to see just the way they constructed everything.
And that's what I that's another point I wanna make about the environments is that each chapter felt like it had its own challenge. It had its own unique set of challenges that you had to face as the player. Billstown, as far as I know, is the only place where you deal with those traps, right? Like I can't think of another moment in the game where you're dealing with those string traps and you can run
There
into them.
is one other moment that there's like one trap, but yes, Billstown is the
Yeah.
area where you
Yeah.
play with those.
But every single chapter just felt so different and unique to me. Playing this, I've been lucky. I don't have any spoilers for this game because one, I'm terrified of zombies, so of course I don't really watch gameplay. So I really didn't know hardly anything about this game going into it. But every single chapter when it started, I'm like, oh my god, what are they about to throw at me? Am I
Mhm.
going to have to deal with waves of zombies in a mall at some point, or am I just going to be sneaking around a bunch of stalkers, or am I going to
Mhm.
deal with two bloaters at once? What the hell are they about to throw at me? And that's what kept me on my toes this whole game. And I can imagine for people that can actually handle horror like this and enjoy that fear factor, this is such a great game for them because you really don't know what the hell you're getting into.
So so for me personally, I'm not a horror guy. I
Hmm.
like walking simulator horror, like the like dark
Like the
anthology.
medium,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, the medium for sure. But for this, I did not find this game overly scary. The
Hmm.
only part of the game where I was scared was the stalkers
Yeah, the
because
sewers.
I heard the stalkers behind me
Yep.
and I'm like, what is going on here? I turn around, no one's there. And
Yeah, no.
I'm like, no,
Woo.
I hear them. They're over here.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't, I went into a little alcove and then went to turn around and saw the stalker like popping out behind.
Oh, and he's
F-
peeking.
Freaked me out.
You
That
didn't
is
know they could do that before you
no,
went in
I
there?
had no
Yeah,
idea because I didn't
same,
know what was chasing me. I was like,
same.
what's going on here?" Like, this is the first time they're introduced, and then you see that, and I they immediately like freaked out, and ran away, and but I like got
Mhm.
scared. I was like, if I go out there, am I gonna get like my throat
Yeah.
ripped out?" So I held up in like this little alcove and was just trying
Uh-huh.
to get them to come in, and they weren't coming, and I was like,
No.
"You are ignoring the rules of this game."
Yep. Yeah, I remember I think the first place you encounter them are Ish's sewers, right? After you go through the tugboat and then you go into that sewer area where that little community was set up, which that's another awesome environment, by the way. I wish I spent more time in there, but I wanted to just get the hell out of the sewers as fast as possible. But it was really fun exploring that. But I remember when you first walked in, you heard them, like you said, right? And I'm like, oh God, there's runners down here. And I used the listen, the thing where you get to look through the
I
walls and
use it
see them.
constantly.
There's nothing there. I'm like,
Yep.
okay, where are those runners? I'm like, all right, then they're not there. I start moving forward a little bit. I hear them again. I'm like, all right, something's fucking with me, right? I'm so scared right now. I'm literally shaking. My hands are shaking at this point. My wife's next to me, like, chill out, you got this. And I'm like, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I just throw a Molotov in front of me randomly, hoping that something will run at it, and I get one of them and he falls out. So luckily
Mm,
I didn't have one of those jump scare moments where I saw him peek around the corner, but I
yeah.
did see it later on and I'm like, "Oh god, that is the most horrifying thing I have
Mhm.
ever seen in my life." It was oh,
For sure. It was scary. So I want to transition into the gameplay because
yeah.
obviously the gameplay mechanics themselves haven't been changed
Mhm.
from the 2013 original release. You don't have any of the new features that you get in The Last of Us Part 2. There are some animations that they brought over for like the workbenches and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
specifically the way you play the game is essentially the same. So what did you think of the overall gameplay mechanics?
So I thought it was really simplistic, but I think in this setting it worked. It worked really, really well. What you could do worked really well. I think the combat was fine. I love actually how realistic it felt. The gunplay felt. That your bullets or your the sway of your gun when you're aiming. Because I remember at the beginning of the game, I'm so used to video games just being point shoot, right?
Mhm.
I'm missing shots. I'm firing all 6 rounds out of my revolver and I'm not hitting a damn thing. I'm like, okay, so I actually need to focus in and actually aim this gun. I can't just start firing randomly and do auto lock and all that. So I really love the gameplay of this. It again, it's backed up by that 60 frames per second in the environment. Just maneuvering through things, walking down steps, walking up steps, climbing up ledges, all those little things that you're doing. It looks so smooth, so crisp. It looks so beautiful, and it just makes the whole game feel really smooth overall. So I love the gameplay. The combat's really simple, but it's really fun for me.
Okay. I think this might be where we differ the most because for me, I don't think the combat, specifically the stealth combat, holds up in this game. I
Okay.
think the stealth mechanics where you're crouching around and like trying to sneak up on enemies is awful. Like, I'm not even gonna
Yeah.
sugarcoat it. I genuinely think it's terrible in this game. It does not feel good. It most of the time you get seen for like the most ridiculous reason. I know we played on different difficulties,
Yeah.
but on the difficulty I was playing on, the enemies would just spot you regardless of if there's like a thing in front of me. It just really was not very good. Like, I'd be sneaking up behind them, someone way off in the distance would see me. I do like the, and this is a stealth mechanic that more games need to implement.
Hmm.
When you had multiple enemies and you stealth killed one and the enemy yelled to the other and was like, "You all right? Like, anything over there?" And
That
nobody
was really
answered,
cool. Yeah.
they came over to check. Because in a lot
Hmm.
of stealth games I've played, if you take out an enemy, the other enemies just pretend like, "Oh, he never existed."
Even if they're
Like,
in the middle of a conversation and you
even if
interrupt
they're in the
them.
middle of the
Yeah.
conversation. So I like to see that. I thought that was a nice touch that did add something to the experience. But majority of the time, I found myself, okay, if it's zombies I'm fighting or the
Yeah.
infected, whatever you want to call them,
Going loud.
my strategy was to grab a brick, grab a bottle, break it, lure them to one location, Molotov, not nail bomb them.
Yeah.
That was the most enjoyable thing for me because I always had supplies for those. I
Hmm.
was constantly just bam, 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 blasting them. Humans, I was all guns out. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm headshotting you people, which now leads me to the gunplay. I remember a while back, it was about The Last of Us Part 2, where Xbox did their own like review and they said that Naughty Dog still can't make good gunplay. And I have to
Damn.
agree because I don't think the gunplay in this is very good. Do I think it's bad? No, I don't think it's bad. It's completely serviceable.
Hmm.
I do think the weapon sway is a bit much. I do think that once you upgrade it, it becomes completely fine.
Yeah.
Once you put some points in and
It's
stuff,
a whole lot easier.
yeah, it's very manageable. There are certain weapons I enjoyed more than others, and we can talk about those. Because for me, I really enjoyed the pistols and the hunting rifle. If you give me the bow and arrow, I'm going to throw my controller. That
No,
is
I
the
didn't.
worst weapon in any video
I
game I've
only
ever
used the
used.
bow when I had to for story reasons, and the biggest thing was because the draw on it was so took so long. And I'm like,
And
I'm honestly not going to invest my resources into upgrading this if I don't use it anyways at the beginning. So
you can you can upgrade the draw,
yeah,
which I did, and it doesn't really help all that much. I
yeah,
just I never found a use for it. And the one specific moment you're talking about where you kind of are supposed to use the bow, I went
hmm,
stealth. That was the only part of the section where I was
right.
stealth killing people because I could not do it.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, the weapons I definitely used the most were the semi-auto pistol, just because it was, small, compact. It had a large magazine. Once you get it upgraded, I think it got to like 14 rounds by the time it was fully. That's the gun I fully upgraded for the trophy, and then the shotgun. The shotgun was my favorite thing to use against infected because on my difficulty. It was pretty much one shot for runners and clickers if they were close enough, and
depends on
stalkers, obviously.
which
But
shotgun, the
the
shorty
pump,
or yes.
the
Oh,
pump
the
shotgun.
pump, not the little tiny hand
No, not the
shotgun.
little tiny hand
Oh,
cannon.
that's interesting because the pump one is not one hit kill on my difficulty, but the short one usually
I
was a one
really
hit
didn't
kill.
like the short one. It
I
didn't
loved
it
it.
didn't feel as compact, like, it felt like it spread more, and I had to get closer to actually effectively use it. The pump felt like you were shooting a slug, and I
Mm,
could hit things from farther away. That was just how I played it. So usually infected, I was slugging them with the shotgun, and then regular hunters, I was just shooting out with the pistol behind cover, just a
yeah.
regular gunfight.
Hmm. For sure. I will say, and this might be controversial. I think one of the reasons I liked this game so much, more than I expected to,
Mhm.
is that this game is clearly the inspiration for a game I love, and that's a Plague Tale.
Mm.
This
Yeah.
game is the framework for what Asobo did with the Plague Tale Innocence. Ellie is Hugo. Joel
Yeah.
is Amicia. Instead of guns, you have a slingshot, and the stealth is better in a Plague Tale. You have more combat options in The Last of Us, but there
Mhm.
is no denying that even simple like the run animation, just certain things you do in the game. I'm like, this is clearly the inspiration.
Yeah,
They
they were
know
very
they
inspired by
knew, yeah,
Last of Us, yeah.
they exactly knew. And if they what they're doing in Requiem looks to be like, okay, I think they're going further into The Last of Us, right? Making things a little more open, like they were even in this game, because this
Right.
game is more open. So I am actually, this game got me more excited for a different
That's
game
good.
altogether.
That's cool though. That's cool
Yeah,
that you
it's
can make
very
that
cool to
connection.
see that. Very, very cool. I was like, wow. I know people are like, you hear people are like, oh, it's a narrative third person over the
Mhm.
shoulder game. But really though, when you see the inspiration, like, because what,
Yeah.
Plague Tale came out in 2019. So this was
Mhm.
6 years earlier. It's so obvious.
Yeah.
Um, we can go into story beats now. Maybe put a
Okay.
little spoiler warning here if
Oh,
anyone's
yeah.
listening.
Spoiler.
We're the game's been out for almost a decade now, so if you don't know what happens,
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. You can go play it like we did and come back. But we're gonna talk about the entire story. So
Mhm.
what were your favorite moments in the story? Because there's clearly some standouts for me, some conversations I want to talk about, some highlights, but we can start right at the beginning with Joel and Sarah.
Okay.
So what did you think of the opening to this game?
I think it set the tone early. I thought it set the tone with how Joel was as a character. Obviously, she dies, right? Sarah dies. She gets shot by the soldier. And then it quickly cuts to 20 years later when it's him and Tess, right? That's the other character's name.
Yes.
And you can see just how much Joel is of a broken man in a way.
Hmm.
Joel very much looked like your traditional suburban family man, back before the
He looked
CBI
like
stuff.
a blue collar worker working
Yeah,
long laborious hours, coming home.
just a regular Joe with a kid, and he loved his kid. He obviously had a lot of love for his daughter and his family, and now he's in this broken world, and he himself is very broken, and he's very lost. He's talking about smuggling pills. He's dealing with criminal activity. He's not part of the Fireflies. He doesn't like the government. He's kind of a lone wolf with Tess. So I think it really set the tone early for the character of Joel, which I really
Hmm.
enjoyed.
Yeah. So I liked the opening because, and you're going to see this as a common theme for other things we discuss. It basically set the tone, as you were saying, for if a bad thing can happen in this game, it's
Hmm.
going to happen
Yeah.
because
This is depressing game.
it's very depressing game. Very,
Yeah.
I figured Sarah was probably gonna die because
Yeah. Yeah.
because if she was alive, then why wouldn't it be Joel and Sarah and not
Right.
Joel
Yeah.
and Ellie, you know? So I figured she was not long for this world, but the fact I thought an infected would get her or something along those lines. The fact that a human soldier who we all thought when you're playing the game, oh, they're gonna save us or whatever, is ordered to kill her. Like that was
Hmm.
so messed up to me. And then you continue to see, even flash forward, everything's under martial law, quarantine zones, lockdown. The soldiers are essentially the bad guys in
I
this
mean,
game.
I don't know if you could even call any of them bad guys at this point, because like the world seems so broken around you. Even though the Fireflies are sort of the goal that you have to reach, even early on, I'm like, are the Fireflies really all that better?
I
You
didn't
know,
think they were.
they're doing attacks against fortified positions that are keeping people safe from the infected. I don't know if they're necessarily the best people. They care a lot about ideology. They care about, how they want to do things. And then obviously your hatred for the government agents is
Hmm.
spawned from when you first walk through the Boston QZ and you see them bringing people out and just shooting people in the street,
Ex-
which again, it kind of makes sense because let's be real here. It's a brain infection that's uncurable and it's going to turn you into a monster that could kill
I was
everybody.
wondering
So
if you, because I was walking through and this was,
I stayed there and I
I
watched the whole
literally
thing.
watched the whole thing and I was like, because I knew I was like, they're gonna find one and then they're gonna kill.
Yeah.
Like, oh man,
And
and then they
that
did
was
it.
a really cool moment too, and I'm glad they put it there because I feel like a lot of people probably had that same mentality. Okay, I kind of want to see where it's going here. And because you're so uninvolved in the situation, you're kind of just standing there watching it. It really conveys the message to you like this is a very lived in world. There's a lot going on, and you're not the main character of this world. You're just
Mhm.
another guy here. And I
Yeah,
think that was really cool to kind of set the tone for the game.
yeah. And so you and Tess set out to go take down. I don't even remember his Robert. Was his name Robert? I think.
Robert, yeah,
Yeah, the guy that
because he cheated
stole.
you out of some
Yeah,
guns.
stole some guns from you. You find him, track him down, kill him like pretty
Yeah.
unwavering.
Straight
And then
gangster energy.
you run into Marlene, who's been injured, and she wants you
Mhm.
to take Ellie to the
Right.
Fireflies, which I'm like, okay, now I know how we meet Ellie. Like it's all coming together. But like Tess is still with us at this point. And
Yeah.
I think I said in the Discord, like I just after a certain point, you hit the you hit this moment where your trio becomes a duo because
Yeah.
Tess gets bitten by one of the infected, and then
Mhm.
the soldiers come
It was
to
a
take
final
out.
stand, yeah.
Yeah, she does a final stand, lets you guys get away, which I'm gonna say right now, I didn't really care because I didn't really have that much emotional connection to Tess. I thought
No.
she was kind of a jerk the entire time we knew her. Um, I,
I
c-
mean,
I
she was on the same level as Joel, really, in terms of how the character was, and because
that's good to point out
they were
because
pretty much a dynamic duo there. Those two, they were smugglers, they were criminal element, like they just kind of did
I
their
didn't
own thing.
like Joel for the first part of this game. Every time he talked, I was like, "You kind of seem like a dirt bat. Like
Yeah, he was a
you're
really you could
rude."
I think you can really tell there is a lot of anger in him and a lot
Mhm.
of hatred for the world. I think he just hates the world. I don't know why he's still trying to kick around and deal with it, but he is.
Yeah,
So,
so you and Ellie go off, you're trying to get to the Fireflies, but you have no idea how to do that. So
yeah.
then you go to Billstown, which I think this is really where the game picks up, right? This
Yes.
is
Yeah, I
this
would
is
agree.
for me when I was like, okay, I'm in. Because
Yeah.
before I was like, this is good so far, nothing amazing. But Billstown for me really changed it. You meet Joel's friend, Bill, who is kind of like a loony. I don't know. He's like
He's a smart
whole
loony.
yeah, smart loony. Has a bunch of traps everywhere, which
Yep.
I didn't run into a single trap. I almost did. I was like,
I did
"Oh,
once.
did you?"
Yeah, it was
Um,
terrifying.
Ellie and him don't get along because I don't think he likes children, but he
No.
helps you to try to find a car battery so you can leave and get out of there. The moment I want to talk about Billstown is when he finds his partner Frank
Frank, yeah.
hanging from the ceiling after he got infected and he clearly committed suicide.
Yeah.
I don't you did it because you got the platinum and there's a trophy
Mhm.
for it, but picking up his note and then giving it to Bill, and then Bill
Bill will
basically
crumple it up and throw it down, and
he
yeah.
he clearly is hurt though. Like
Yeah.
you can tell by his performance, which is a highlight throughout this entire game. There are so many good performances in this
Performances are
game.
insane, and every character that you're introduced to really has a lot of depth to them, and you do I think past Tess, you get more attached to the characters, right? Tess, not so much. She's just kind of the introductory character, but every character
Mhm.
you meet along the way, you get to know their personality, you actually survive with
Yep.
them, you get into fights with them, you really have to deal with this world with them, and that attaches you in a way. But Bill's story was really rough because I think it showed the mentality of not only him, but it also kind of mimics the mentality of Joel of I lost somebody, get over it. This world sucks. And no matter how much pain I have, I need to shove it down inside and not show it and not deal with it because there are zombies everywhere. There are people that want to kill me, and I just got to survive. So I thought that kind of added another layer onto the world that it's not just Joel dealing with these issues, losing people. Bill's
Mhm.
here too, lost somebody. Ellie has clearly, I think there were some hints that she had lost people in the past. Obviously, we get to that later with the DLC. And yeah, this whole world is just dreadful, and this really doubled down on that.
Yeah, I think the next chapter really doubles down on it because up to this point, you've only really fought soldiers and infected. And
Yeah.
then you obviously get your car and you're driving, and then you get ambushed by hunters. And Joel lets you know that he's
Mhm.
been on both sides. These are humans that
Yeah.
basically kill other humans to steal their supplies. And
Yep.
I don't really understand the motivation. Clearly, they're just horrible people. I think
Yeah.
that's their entire motivation.
They're feral at this point.
Yeah, because in my mind, I was like, in what world does it make sense to kill like your fellow humans for these supply? Like,
They
why
don't
wouldn't
care
you
anymore.
help that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like how do they decide who's going to be their friends? Because clearly they have friends in the hunters, but like, how did they decide who they're going to recruit and who they're just going to mercilessly mow down in the
Who the
street?
hell? Yeah, because you think Joel would be a perfect candidate for a recruit, and if they saw him, like, we'll kill the girl, but we'll take you. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
was
It's
very,
weird.
but like the fact that you now have humans hunting you was kind of like another level of messed up for me. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
there's clearly nothing good in this world going on. So, um, basically fight our way out of there, right? And then I think the next pivotal point, and I might be forgetting because it's been a few days, but is
Mhm.
when we meet up with Henry and Sam.
Henry and Sam are the next characters that we're introduced to, yeah.
Yes, which I like these characters a lot.
These
They're
were my
gr-
favorite characters.
they're
Mhm.
a group of other brothers, and Henry's the older one. Yes,
Henry is the older one and
yes.
Sam is the young kid.
Henry is obviously he's trying to get his brother Sam to the Firefly, same as Joel and Ellie. So they're
Yep.
like, hey, let's form an alliance. Ellie and Sam are like happy go lucky, like they're being
Yeah.
kids. And I think this was the first sign of like humanity
Really
we saw in the
heartwarming.
game.
It was
Yes.
a and I think they strategically put that in the middle of the game to kind of give you a bit of a break because 13 hours of just this dreadfulness would
Hmm.
have been really depressing. It was nice to see that humanity. And I remember one moment, I think, in the house, you go upstairs and you're kind of rummaging around. There's a house with a dartboard in the first like little suburb area that you explore with them. When you come back downstairs, Ellie and Sam are playing darts together,
Mm,
and you go up to the side and you can have an optional conversation with Henry and just talk to him about the kids and be and Henry's like, "Damn, it's really nice to actually see them be kids again."
hmm.
And you're just like, "Oh,
Yes.
that
My
that tugged on the heartstrings there a little bit."
my favorite moment with Ellie and Sam was I think it's in the sewers when they play soccer.
Oh
And I
yeah,
was
yep,
like, she was so excited to like kick it, and he saved it, and he was trying to like, brother, look at me, like I saved it, like isn't that impressive? But like Henry kind of shuts him down, like we got more important things to worry about. But it was nice to see them get to act like kids,
yeah.
especially because after you've been with them a while. Um, I want to talk on one thing, but the
Mhm.
sniper section, I
That
really
was
liked
so
that
fun.
section.
I
That was
actually
a lot of
replayed that
fun.
section just to do that again. That was really, really fun, just blasting people, then shooting all the infected as you ran out of ammo. Oh, it was
Yeah,
great.
yes. It was the one time where I actually was like using stealth and like hopping in and out of windows to get behind people and like execute them. And then you got
Yep.
up to the sniper pit, obviously, and then you get the sniping section. So a lot of fun. But the lightheartedness with Sam and Henry unfortunately doesn't last very long
No.
because you're escaping Boston
Mhm.
and
No, you're
Joel.
escaping Pittsburgh.
Oh, Pittsburgh. Yes,
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. Sorry. And the ladder breaks, and Joel is trapped down there.
Mhm.
And Henry decides, "Peace, homie. Like I know we were helping each other, but like I
Yeah.
gotta leave you to
He
die."
straight up abandoned you.
Yeah, straight up abandons you, and I'm like, everyone in this world is garbage. Um, you and Ellie end up in a river. You almost drown. Henry and Sam do come back to save you, which again, I'm like, okay, I can.
Made
We
up
can.
for it.
Yeah, made up for it a little bit. All right, but then Sam gets bitten
Mhm.
and turns into an infected and has to be killed. And then Henry blows his own brains
Yeah.
out.
I
That
thought we
was
were gonna have to fight him at
I
first,
thought we
but
were gonna have to fight him too. I did not expect the suicide.
mhm. And, you know, obviously, I think that shows the level of character that Henry had. That he was truly a good person in this world because he knew deep down that it wasn't Joel and Ellie's fault, obviously, right? This thing just happened. And by the way, that is one of the craziest moments in terms of performance
Hmm.
for this cast. I mean, the amount of emotion during that scene was absolutely incredible. I haven't been that enthralled by video games in a while until I played this. I mean, it really, really captured me with this scene. But yeah, it was just a really sad moment, and you're like, that's when it's like, okay, pretty much every person you're meeting in this game is going to be finite. Because
Hmm.
first it was Bill, and now it's these two. And it's like, okay, now everybody I meet, I'm just gonna have that constant thought in the back of my head: Am I gonna lose these guys at some point?
I am glad Bill didn't die.
Yeah, I liked Bill.
Yeah, I like Bill. I did feel like any character that has a name and I'm going to be with them is probably going to die. It did get
Exactly.
like at that point, I just became so aware of like this game, it's what it's going to do to me.
Hmm.
But we go from there to
Or
Tommy's,
real
right?
quick,
Oh, you want to touch it? Yeah, yeah.
can I
Yeah,
go
sure.
back to another positive moment in
Yeah,
terms of
sure.
Sam and Henry? Something really cool, a little detail that a lot of people might have missed. You remember after the whole ordeal with Sam and Henry, and that Ellie actually took that robot that he picked up in the store and Henry
Oh,
got
yeah.
mad at him
Mhm.
about? Yeah.
Brings it to his grave.
Well, she does that, but if you go back and play it when he's first yelled at and you start walking towards the door to leave and you turn around before you go through the door, you'll see Ellie come down and pick that robot up and put it
Oh,
in her backpack. Like it's not like a video game thing where it's just, oh, after the load screen she has it in her inventory. No, like you actually see her pick it up. So I thought that was a really, really cool little detail that they put in there that I wanted to highlight.
yeah, that is cool. I didn't even see that. That's a
Yep.
phenomenal little detail. I knew about the grave part, and I was like, wow,
The great
okay,
part too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we um we go to Tommy's,
Hmm.
and you kind of get the feeling like, oh, Tommy's, he forgives Joel, like, and then they have that discussion, and Tom and Joel's like, you gotta
Yeah.
take her to the Fireflies. She's immune, and Tommy doesn't really want to. Like, he has a new life, he has a new wife. All right,
Yeah.
so he's trying to build something here, and I think the discussion, because Ellie runs away and you have to go
Yeah.
find her. This is a very short section of the game for
Hmm.
one, like very
Not a
short.
lot of combat. There's some
No,
combat with hunters at the beginning,
yeah,
but
it's mostly a narrative thing. The conversation with Joel and Ellie, where he basically is like, you're not my daughter, you're not my
yeah.
responsibility. You're gonna go with Tommy, deal with it. But then he kind of switches his tone right back, and it I get it, because she does have a moment during this little arc where he kind of realizes, like, okay, she needs to be with me.
Yeah.
But I did feel like they maybe could have. I was expecting her to go with Tommy, and then us to like realize after the fact, for so, and like go after her.
I think it was that moment where she said that I think it was Ellie that told Joel. She's like, "If I go with anyone else, I would be more scared."
Hmm.
That's the only thing I'm thinking of. And then that's when it clicked for Joel because I think that kicked Joel's fatherly instincts in a little bit. Those things that he had lost 20 years before when his daughter had gotten shot. And I think that was a really big character transition for Joel in terms of looking at Ellie as cargo, as something that he had to just shuttle along into. This is a person I need to protect, and this is a person I've grown attached to. And that's when his fatherly duties sort of kicked in. So I think that was a really, really cool moment for that character.
I do think there is a clear transition into that where he assumes that fatherly role.
Yeah.
Um, I don't. For me, I I think it could have been a little more drawn out, because I feel like the after the because you skip through the seasons, right?
Right.
I feel like we spend a lot of time in the first season, and then after that, he becomes very much like more fatherly, just like automatically, just because they've been together longer, which is fine. It's a little thing I could get over. But
Yeah.
we go from there to the university, because
Hmm.
Tommy tells us to go to the
University Eastern
university,
Colorado.
and the university is um dumb. You ride a horse through the. I didn't really like this part.
You
Like,
didn't? I didn't, just for the fact of pretty much the only combat in it was dealing with really large amounts of these infected in very dark underground areas. And I was not when you had to open all the gates and you had to keep going into the dorm rooms and going underground. So that was a really rough one to get through for me because I think I agree with you. This is probably the environment that I connected to the least because it was just a lot of interior. It was cool to see the different dorm rooms and everything, but it was just a lot of interior running through hallways, checking a room, jumping down, opening a gate, starting a generator, and that's pretty much the whole chapter right there.
yeah, it was really nothing special, except um Joel gets impaled here.
Yeah, big moment in this
Yeah,
chapter.
yeah, where he gets into a scuffle with a hunter, falls off, and gets a pipe through the stomach, and then
Yeah,
Ellie, which you'll see in the Left Behind DLC,
I'm
takes care
glad
of
they
him.
covered that because I'm like, how the hell did Ellie
I
like?
Same, same.
I thought
I,
we were done there. I'm like, is this how the game ends? I
is this
don't
how the
know.
game? Joel just dies, and
Joel
Ellie
just
is left
dies
for
here.
dead. No, so Ellie nurses him back to health. She is out.
Mhm.
We get a little time skip to the winter,
So cool.
where the giraffes were in the last section, right?
Giraffes are in the last section. Yeah.
Love that scene of her getting super excited about the giraffes. You get the
I was excited about the draft. Like, this is cool.
yeah, yeah, they just looked very pretty, especially on PS5.
Yeah.
But so we go to the winter. She's hunting a deer, which, again, this part annoyed me because you had to use the bow
This is where they introduce Ellie as a playable
as a
character, right?
playable
This is the
character.
first time,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
And I will touch on that as the more we go
Mhm.
because, well, I'll let you wait for my opinions on that. But you hunt this deer and you have to follow it through the snow, which it leaves blood, but I don't know what happened because I was following the blood trail and then I was like, where is this deer? I'm following the blood.
I
And
got
then it
lost here too, yeah.
yeah, I got lost and it was like, oh, it's way up there. I was like, but the blood trail led here. It doesn't what are you talking about? And then there was like two different trails. I was like, this makes no sense.
Yeah, I was under the impression that I actually had to hunt this deer, and it wasn't just a medium for me to get to the next story plot. So I was like, okay, I actually got to kill this deer. So I'm actually tracking it. I shot it like 3 times or something. I'm like,
Same.
oh my god, how much longer do I have to deal with this? So I actually was an idiot, and I tried to run around and flank it so that it wouldn't run away anymore and stuff. And finally, I'm like, oh, it just goes up into an area where you do a
Hmm.
cutscene. Okay,
Yeah,
god
and
damn it.
you meet David
Yep.
and his as you'll discover after a little section where you fight with him, cannibal clan.
Yeah.
His homies are they all eat people, which
Yep.
I'm like, of course, why not? The Last of Us has everything else in it. Why not cannibals?
Yep, there's
Um,
deer apparently right in your backyard, but you wanna keep eating human flesh, great.
right. So she gets some medicine from these people after they make a little deal.
Yep.
She goes back to Joel's like, okay, they follow her back,
You
and
knew they
then
were gonna betray her, right? Like,
for
right
sure,
away. Like,
for
they're gonna track her
sure,
back and find them and just
his
like
nice guy act, I was like, there is 0%
no.
chance this dude isn't scum of the
And
earth.
I think that kinda tells you what your mentality is at that point in the game, that you
Hmm.
just absolutely don't trust anything in this world. Like, when the whole time Ellie's working with him, obviously, I understood them fighting together against the hordes of infected, like, we had to do that to survive, but just being able to let them leave, no, I was like, "Ellie, shoot them now in the
Hmm.
back before they even come closer." Like, take their
Yeah.
medicine, take the deer, and run. But, you
Yep.
know
So you get this is the part of the game where everyone's searching for Ellie, and you really get thrust into you're playing as Ellie now. You don't
Mhm.
have all your upgrades, your weapons that
Yeah.
Joel has.
You just have the little pistol and
And
the
I'm gonna
bow.
tell you right now, Ethan, this is undoubtedly the worst part of this entire game. I
Really?
hated the lakeside lodge area where it's all
Mhm.
snow, you can't see anything, you don't have any weapons because it's so frustrating. Like I was trying to stealth kill people. The enemies would corner me, see me some through the snow, even though I can't see anybody through the snow. And you only got this stupid little butter knife, which, bro, my Joel, if an enemy gets close to me, I'm like whacking them in the head, one
I have
shot
to
kill.
say, with the butterfly knife, it's great because the assassinations are quicker. I got so tired of watching Joel choke people out by the end of
Oh,
this
I only did
game.
it like 4 times.
Oh, I was so tired of it because I love to do the stealth. I tried to stealth as much as possible, and it took so long to kill people as
Mm.
Joel. So I appreciated the Ellie butterfly knife because you just jump on them like a
Yeah,
spider monkey, just start stabbing and
I
get them.
did like that animation. I just think her overall gameplay was so much, especially because I didn't have any of my upgrade. I was back to this awful weapon sway, which was like I can't hit anything 2 feet in front of me now.
Right. I think it was done well in the sense of, okay, now I'm playing as a little girl. Like, obviously, they're not as comfortable with the weapons. They don't know how to handle them as well as maybe Joel does. Makes sense. But in practice, obviously, that just makes it harder on
Hmm.
the players. So this is definitely probably if you're playing on higher difficulties, I could easily see this being the most challenging chapter to get through.
It definitely was the most one. There's the one where I struggled the most, especially the David boss fight encounter, where
Did you
you
struggle with it or did you think it was stupid?
no, I struggled with it. I died constantly.
I died like 5 times, I think.
I was about to turn my PS5 off because I was like, I hate this because
Yeah.
you obviously stab him once, which is like they give you a free stab, and then he pulls out a machete, and if you go at him head on with your little butter knife, he just hacks you in the
Oh,
neck.
yeah, you're dead. You gotta get behind him.
But I don't. It took me so long to get behind. I was like, you literally are expected to just sprint around the entire cabin until
That's what you
he
yeah.
doesn't run after you for one
Yep.
moment.
You just sprint around to the bar area, duck under some booths, and then play, like, cat and mouse with them around booths. That was all, and
So
what do you have to
stupid.
stab them 2 or 3 times? I think it's 3
Twice, I
times
think.
twice. So,
Yeah.
the boss fight, when I was, like, halfway through, I'm like, "Okay, this is their boss fight, like, this is their
Mhm.
version. Is this necessary?" Like, did
It
we really need
wasn't.
we didn't we kind of had boss fights here and there with some of the bloaters. I don't know if you'd consider them bosses just as like tough enemies, but this is clearly designed to be a boss fight, and I just didn't know if it was necessary. And if you were gonna do a boss fight sort of scenario, why not make it with Joel and have like a real big
Mhm.
boss fight? Which I heard that in Last of Us Part 2, there are some real big boss fights with some pretty gnarly infected. So I'm a little excited about that, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, I hated this part. I was glad when it
Yeah, I
was over. Then
didn't need it.
Joel gets better miraculously. He's like, "Oh, I was sick 5 minutes ago, but now I'm good. Let's go."
Well, yeah.
He comes, saves Ellie as she's about to be raped by David, which
Yeah. I thought she was about to be killed.
no, he was on her back holding her. He said, "You don't know what I'm capable of." He was gonna
Oh,
rape her, and then
I didn't pick up on that.
because
Damn.
after the fact, when Joel was like, it's me, it's okay," and Ellie was like crying, and she was like, he was gonna, and he's like, "It's okay, baby." Like,
Oh, I must have blanked out when I
nah,
saw
he
that.
at least unless I'm wildly misinterpreting it, but like he held her down, right? Like I just assumed that's what he was gonna do to her
Yeah.
because he had that creepy vibe about him.
Looking back, I can see it now. But
Yeah.
at the time, like I played a lot of this game on really low volume because
Mhm.
it scared the hell out of me so much. So I probably didn't pick up on a lot of subtle nuances.
Yeah. So we move from winter to spring.
Yep.
Joel and Ellie are back together. The boys are back in town,
Hmm.
and they're going to finally find the fireflies. So they go to this. I like this area. It's like lush. It's green. It's very nice looking.
Hmm.
And you get the scene where I think this is a scene, unless it's back at the college, because I might be mixing these up, but where Joel tells Ellie like we don't have to do this. I think it's here because it's
It
like
is. I think it's right
yeah,
at the beginning. Yeah.
yeah. Joel tells Ellie like we don't have to do this. We can turn around. We can go back to Tommy's and just
That's what I
live
would have
our
done in the
life.
first place, honestly, in this
They
scenario.
got it good there. I don't. Tommy's look the
They had
best
electricity.
scenario.
If I was in Joel's shoes, I'd be like, "You can stay with me. I'm not gonna go anywhere. I
Mhm.
don't care at this point. This world sucks. It can go to hell."
And Ellie obviously, she says to the life, I turn around like what about everything I've done? And then gives the
Yeah.
line, which I, I thought was pretty impactful. You didn't seem to get it, even though it's the platinum trophy, which it can't all be for nothing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Just another line to me.
just another line for you.
I get why it's impactful, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
So then we go. I can't. There's a bunch of like action sequence, like the bus falls. You go underwater. You
Yeah, so
jump like
you go up and you have to go into a bus tunnel or a bus station, and then that
yes,
leads you down to like a tunnel area. Then you go through the tunnel area, and then at the end of the tunnel area, you're met by the fireflies.
yes, yes.
Oh, by
After
the way, this is where probably the hardest infected fight
those
is
two
in the game.
bloaters
The
with
two
the
bloaters and
runners.
all of the runners.
I
I immediately climbed up on that box truck and I just started lobbing Molotovs. I started lobbing bombs, and I was able to take care of them fairly quickly.
I
So that's how I did it.
I didn't even think to climb up on the truck. I literally whipped out my flamethrower and just stood there as they ran in a line and like burned them all to death.
You know what? I didn't even use the flamethrower once. I
Bro,
remember picking it up. I'm like, this is cool. And I completely forgot to use it throughout the whole game. I just kept with my shotgun and pistol. I'm kind of
mm,
mad about that
yeah,
now.
flamethrowers were great against the bloaters.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you get captured by the fireflies. Marlene is magically, she's like, it's been like a year. What, you guys are finally here. Like, I'm like, you
I
could have done this.
I wanted to get so mad. Like if I was Joel, do you know what the hell we've been
Yeah,
through?
like
We went all across this goddamn country looking for you. How could you say that to me?
you're just here alive, no longer bullet wound in
Yeah.
your stomach. She's like explaining to Joel, like, okay, we're gonna make the vaccine, but in order to do that, Ellie's gotta die. We gotta take out her brain or whatever. And
Yeah.
Joel's not very happy about that,
No.
but they got a gun on him. He doesn't have any of his stuff. They're like, all right, escort him out. He quickly kills that guard, like stabs him in the neck,
Yeah.
blood everywhere, shoots him in the stomach. It's a whole thing. And this is where you go Jason Bourne, Die Hard, Joel
Yep.
Miller, where you start killing the entire
Joel goes
hospital
nuts.
staff. I
Yeah.
loved it.
I,
This might have been my favorite part of the game.
it was fun, but like I found because I get immersed in games and I become a character. I found myself like why am I doing this? Like, while I was going through this, I'm like, oh God, should I be doing this? Like, I know I can't stop because this is the storyline, but I don't feel like I should keep going. Especially when you break into the surgery room and you shoot the first doctor who has the scalpel in his hand. And without skipping a beat, I turned and I shot the other two doctors that were just cowering in the corner. And I was like, why did I just do that?
I
I'm
so
awful.
I was
This
gonna
game
ask
has
you.
ruined me.
I was gonna ask you about that
Yeah.
because if you actually listen to what the doctor says, you get a little prompt where you take the scalpel from him and kill him with that. I did
Whoa.
not listen to a single word he said, much like you immediately blasted him in the face.
I didn't
The
wait a second.
nurses,
I
the
kicked the door down.
the nurses were crying. I blasted them in the face. I literally was like,
No
I don't,
second thought.
I, d- and it's weird because okay, so you do that, you escape with Ellie, you meet Marlene in the parking lot,
Yeah.
and Marlene's like, you still have time to do the right thing. Like, give us Ellie,
Do I? I
put your
just
gun
killed all the
down.
doctors. I
And
don't know.
then Joel kills Marlene,
Yeah.
like hardcore, like shoots her in the stomach, and she's like, please let me live. And then he's like, you'll just come after us, shoots her in the
Just
head,
relentless.
and then proceeds to lie to Ellie, be like, oh, they got dozens of immune people, like they couldn't make a vaccine, like we're going home.
Yeah.
And in this moment, I was like, I'm the bad guy.
Yeah.
I don't agree. I understand why he did it because he
Yeah.
loves Ellie. Like it's his daughter. Like whether it's not his biological daughter, but it is his daughter now
Yeah.
for all intents and
I
purposes.
think it's more him working through his trauma than it is of actually caring about Ellie, though, I feel like. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? Like, I feel like he's more broken by the trauma of losing Sarah, and this is his way of trying to suppress that, because it's clear throughout the whole game that he refuses to even think about it. He tells Tommy, I
Hmm.
don't want the picture of Sarah. Like, he just doesn't think about it. Now he's forced to think about it because he's dealing with a girl that's about Sarah's age, and I think it's just him snapping at this point and dealing with the 20 years of trauma that he's bottled up, and that's why he made these decisions. That's what I think is the problem with Joel here, is that he's
Hmm.
doing this because he's so traumatized, and it's sort of for selfish reasons, but it's mental health reasons. There's a lot of different layers, I think, to this character.
I very much interpret it as he can't lose another daughter. He won't go
Mm,
through that pain
hmm.
again. So the world be damned. Like he's gonna protect the thing that's most important to him, and the only thing he has left is Ellie. Well, I guess Tommy. What? Screw Tommy, right? Like, who cares about him?
Yeah.
gotta protect Ellie. So, they're off to do whatever. God knows what. But I was very conflicted, and I've talked to a few people about this. Who I know our friend Court Lalonde over at
Hmm.
Carpool Gaming. He's very much in the camp of like he would make the same choice as Joel because he is a daughter. He is a father. He
Yeah.
very much says like when you have children, play the game and see like if you feel differently about Joel's choices. And I've heard that from other people. I think Nagachaka and some other
Yeah.
community members have said the same thing to me, where it is very much like when you have
Heard that too.
children,
Yeah.
the impact is completely different. And if you had asked them in 2013, they would have agreed like Joel made the wrong choice. Like you obviously have to prioritize humanity and saving the world and the
Right.
vaccine over one person's life. But when you actually are the parent, then you make a different choice, which I see both sides. For me, where I am at, I'm like, Joel made a completely illogical option.
Yeah.
Like
And
it makes no sense to me.
and I want to ask you a quick question, because you brought up the point that there was that point where it clicked for you. Oh my God, I'm the bad guy.
Hmm.
Was there really any point in the game where you thought Joel was a good guy in this world? Because he may have been
No.
neutral at times, but he was that. I think just by the sense that he's the character we're playing as, we think of him as the good guy, right? Because
Hmm.
we're him in this game, right? But honestly, his actions for the most of the game are for selfish reasons. I mean, most of the games he's trying to get, or most of the game he's trying to get rid of Ellie, up
Hmm.
until that scene in the ranch house that we had talked about, where
Yeah.
it clicked for him.
Which is why I thought he was someone that was making he made bad decisions. Like when he said he's
Mhm.
been on both sides of the attack. Like, okay, clearly Joel has done some horrible things
Right, yeah.
in this world.
And then
He's
his
clearly not.
conversations with Tommy about how Tommy was saying those years were not have I have nightmares about those
Mhm,
years I spent with you.
yeah.
Obviously, it's ooh.
Clearly he's not a good person, but I think he was trying to do the right thing in the moment until it was Ellie's gonna die. And now he thinks he's making the right choice. But clearly
Mhm.
damning humanity is a choice where for me, logically, I don't think it makes much sense.
Yeah.
I get why he's doing it. I get other people's feelings about like fatherhood and all that stuff. But
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I don't have kids, so I don't know the perspective of a parent, but I'm with you where I would have left Ellie. Like
mhm,
that's not my daughter. You spend the whole game as Joel, beating down the point that you have to let things go. Even teaching Ellie that you have to let people go in this world. You can't get attached to things. You can't, cry. You can't stop and mourn. You have to keep moving forward. And then he breaks that tenet that he's trying to tamper down the entire game. So
mhm,
I don't know. I guess it is. I think it really just is perspective for people for whether or
for
not you're a
sure.
parent. It's a big deal.
I think it was. I think it's a great ending to the game.
It was.
Um,
Yeah.
we the Left Behind DLC. We don't really need to touch on all that
I
much. I
liked it.
don't
I had
think
fun with it.
it was fine. It was a cute little story about it was Ellie's backstory with her best friend and how
Yep.
she tells you the story that they get infected during the game.
Mhm.
Which is it's fine. It was a neat
The
little
trophies are
experience.
really fun with that.
Trophies are really
You
fun. I do
do.
agree with that.
I liked the little arcade game that you had to do. I liked
Hmm.
there's one trophy called Live Bait where you at the end when you're in
Yes,
the
I did
vents you
that.
throw the brick and it attracts all the I think that's the only time you see a large scale conflict between infected and
Yes, it
hunters.
is. And
So that was
so,
really cool to watch because I just sat there and I observed. I'm like, oh god, the infected are ripping them apart.
for I saw that trophy when I was looking through the trophy list, and I was waiting for the moment in the game, the actual main game, where
Yeah, that's
you
what I.
had
Yep.
infected and people at the same time, and you never did. And
Yeah.
I was like, "How do I get this trophy?" And then when as soon as that happened, I didn't even fight anyone, bro. I literally
Yep.
let them, and I was like, "I'm out, peace." Like I just
Hmm.
walked by
Just
everyone
run
and
away as
escaped. Yeah,
everyone's
just
attack.
I'm like, I don't. They can die. I don't care. But
So funny.
overall, I think there's a lot of good in this game. But I want to ask you a highly debated topic on the internet:
Oh.
was the game worth $70 for you?
For somebody that's playing it for their first time, absolutely. If you haven't experienced The Last of Us Part 1, buy this version. This is incredible. I've watched some gameplay since I played it of the remastered version of the original 2013 PS3 version. This is the way to play this
Hmm.
game. It is so enhanced, so incredible. And I mean, there's even more features that we didn't take advantage of. Like you have your 3D audio. I heard about this game where you have those PlayStation 3D audio headsets. You can actually hear those damn stalkers behind you. So if
I
you're
don't think you would
insane
play
and
that.
want if you want that, then go for it. That's awesome. Not for me. This has all the features of the PS5, the haptic
Hmm.
feedback on the controller. This has everything you'd want. Absolutely adore it. Obviously, if you're a super fan of The Last of Us, this is definitely worth $70, I think, for you because again, this is the best way to play this game.
Hmm.
Uh, for people that liked the game and aren't super fans, no, I wouldn't spend $70 on this. This is the third time they've sold it to you in less than 10 years and they're jacking up the price to 70. I think that's
Hmm.
ridiculous. So don't buy it if you're not like a super fan or that you haven't played it yet.
Yep. For me, I can't really answer this question because I won my copy. I didn't
You
pay
son of
a
a
single I didn't pay a single thing. I won
must be
this
nice.
I won this copy, so I feel it's pretty unfair for me to say if it's worth it or not. I will say as a first time player, I really liked it. And if you've never played it, maybe it is something you should look at because
Really, yeah.
this is for me probably the best experience that you can have with the game because I just can't imagine losing the quality of life stuff they put in, the dual sense features,
Oh
the
yeah.
visuals. I think going backwards, if you have the money to spend, going backwards would be a mistake.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you.
Last question before we wrap up: are you going to play
Mhm.
The Last of Us Part 2?
This is tough because under normal circumstances, after playing a game as great as this, of course I'd play the sequel. But
Mhm.
like I've said before, my nerves are shot after just this experience. And this is a very small experience. I hear that The Last of Us Part 2 can take up to 40 hours if you want to do
Mhm.
completionist runs, and it can be a lot longer, and there's a lot more combat, and it's a lot more dynamic. I don't know if I want more dynamic in a zombie game. I don't know if I want an extra 30 hours in a zombie world. I need to take a long break from this sort of stuff. So
Fair.
I feel like at some point in my life,
You
there
will
will
play it.
probably be a time I will play, but it might be when they come out with the remake in 10 years and maybe not right now. But yeah, that's going to go on the back burner for quite a while.
I won't be playing it because I already watched my brother play it. That
Mhm.
game is 10 times more depressing and more violent.
Yeah, I've heard it's very depressing.
Yeah, very depressing, very violent. But I think I'm good with my Last of Us experience. I think I got everything I needed to out of this, knowing where
Mhm.
part two goes and everything that happens in there. I don't feel like it would benefit me to play it. I think it would probably dampen my experience and maybe harm what I think of this because I
Yeah.
do enjoy this game a lot. So that's all we got, guys. I hope you enjoyed this special episode of No Limits, a
An
PlayStation
hour-long
podcast.
review. Look at
Make
that. We
make
went crazy.
sure make sure to like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel if you are new here. If you're on audio feeds, thank you for listening. Make sure to drop us that 5-star. It helps us grow. And we will be back with another review. Maybe the next one is God of War Ragnarok that we're doing for No Limits. Like I can't remember, but that's gonna be a star-studded spoiler cast. Let
Oh,
me
yeah.
tell you, we got things. But Ethan, until then, where can people find you?
You can find me at White Cedar One on Twitter and White Cedar One on PSN and Gravy3448 on Xbox.
And you can find me at the Muffin Mon. It's a 1-7I and an 0-7A. Follow us at Save Game Media on Twitter and make sure to enter our giveaway for God of War Ragnarok. Details are in the description down below. Until next time, see